To the June 13th meeting of the Board of, the Planning Board. This meeting will be broadcast live and recorded by Foxboro Cable Access, and there may be people who also join us by Zoom. And I think that before we begin the meeting, we should introduce the newest member to the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, and the Building Inspectors Board, Zoning Board, and that is Catherine Feerick. And she's taken the position that used to be held by Paige prior to becoming the town manager. We're pleased to have her, and she's got a lot of experience in a variety of different areas that she'll be very helpful to the town. We're looking forward to it.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome again. New Land Use and Economic Development Director is her correct title.
I wonder why I didn't bring that one up.
What's going on, Gab? Anything that we need to address before we get started?
Yeah, we have, we've received 2 applications for subdivisions that will start the hearings at the next meeting. One is for 357 South Street. Bill Buckley presented that informally to the board. It's the McKay property. And the other one is Abbie Estates, which is off of Abbie Lane, and it abuts the land for Pioneer Estates. They're proposing 6 lots, 6 new lots. Paige wanted me to convey to you the information that the access driveway on North Street has been renamed to the Cross Insurance Drive. So we can refer to it by its right name.
So what's that, the 3rd or 4th iteration of that?
It's no longer Putnam Parkway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't branding wonderful?
Yes. And lastly, I sent the board some information about the landscaping at 21 Market Street. We received a concern from an abutter, Linda Shea, who was, very supportive of the project, but it was concerned because what was in the landscaping plan was not what has been installed.
Do you think there's a possibility that we can presume that he's just starting to install his landscaping, or do you think that that's all he's planning on doing?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I can't tell you for sure, but it looks like, what is there. So, we have
Obviously, there's going to be a lot of work down there in the season, right?
Yes.
So, it wouldn't be the worst thing to hold off anyway, if there were going to be any plantings.
Well, we'll have to see. There is a pavers in an area where there should be trees. So I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There is a meeting tomorrow that I will have invited myself to with the landscaper and Mr. Schofield of Dunking Builders. And also Ms. Shea has been invited too. So we can talk and try to figure out, how to make this better.
Okay.
So I will report to the board, if necessary, they will have to come back with a modification to the landscaping plan. But we want to make sure that the neighbors are satisfied.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Minutes?
I sent out 2 sets of minutes because I hadn't done the April ones in time for the last meeting. So you got April 25th and May 23rd.
I'd make a motion that we accept the April 25th minutes as submitted,
Second?
not reviewed, the
Right.
May
I'm
ones.
sorry. Second that?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And you want to wait to review the other ones?
If you want, if everybody else is reviewing them, that's fine, I have not.
I haven't had a chance.
I don't have any issues with it.
So why don't we just wait on those?
Okay.
We'll get them at the next meeting. So, the site plan, can we start on that or no?
No, it's a public hearing, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
thought so. Okay, it being on or about 7:10 PM, we have a site plan review, 8 Springbrook Road. Proposal to install a solar array with an existing parking and rooftop area of an existing office/warehouse building by NextGrid.
I am going to recuse myself as I am a direct abutter.
Okay. So the NextGrid presented a plan to the building commissioner to install solar panels. They're installing on the rooftop, and then they're also installing canopies. So the part of that is in front of you is the canopies, because they require site plan approval from the planning board currently. The use is allowed in that area. The building commissioner had no issues with the location of the canopies or, anything, but, it was just that we need to approve that as a, site plan review.
So the old solo slide fastener building?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So am I seeing this accurately? They're translucent?
Excuse me?
Translucent, they can
Yes.
light through them?
Yes.
Never seen them, so, okay. Does that eliminate any glare possibility?
I don't know.
If it was an engineer, he had to answer these questions.
Yeah, sorry. Not sure what happened.
I'm surprised I don't have somebody representing you here tonight.
Would you like to continue the public hearing for
Yeah,
the
you had
next?
anticipated someone making a presentation,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I
they
think
should-
that's
they-
in order.
Yeah, I do too.
I agree.
So,
to- Do we have 7:05? Let's put 7:05.
what date?
June 27th.
I won't be here.
Well,
You can't do
that's
anything
perfect,
anyway.
because you got to recuse
Yeah,
yourself.
Okay.
It works.
I can zoom in from Carrara if you'd like.
6:27.
From where?
Carrara.
That was a
We
good
got to
one.
make a motion to continue.
I'd make a motion that the board continue this public hearing for 8 Springbrook Road, submitted by NextGrid for a solar array until 7:05 on June 27th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That roof is very close to flat. That's what I think.
Well, here we are again.
It being on or about 7:15 PM, we have continued public hearing, special permit, definitive subdivision, 204 East Street, construction of a proposed 12-lot subdivision for Pine Air LLC. Good evening. So we had, just for public's iteration, we had delayed this hearing until the Concom was dealing with open items and voted on them so that they would not create any issue with the planning board, and they have done that. What was the date of that? Do you know?
June 3rd.
June 3rd. So that has been accomplished. In the meantime, I'll turn it over to Mr. Buckley, Mr. Spillane.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group, and Mr. Spillane is with me this evening as the project attorney. And what I would like to do is just briefly go over the modifications that have been made to the design subsequent to our initial hearing. We've only had one hearing with the board, and we've had several hearings with the Conservation Commission. As you know, the commission closed their public hearing almost 2 weeks ago. and has issued a draft order that I think they'll be voting on Monday night. So what I'd like to do is, let me share my screen here. I know everybody has the hard copy, but I'm going to put up. Another copy. So we've received comments from the town's professional staff. We had a meeting with the town's professional staff. They issued comments. We've received comments from the town's consultant, and we've addressed all of the comments that we've received. The major modifications that have been changed, so there's no change to the roadway, no change to the number of lots, none of those items. But one of the things we did do was on lot down here between lots 5 and 7, we had put in a stub water main and an easement, so for a future connection to a subdivision on the land to our south. That was something that the DPW asked us to do. And we did that, and they asked us to extend it to the end of the property line. So we've shown that on our plan. It's been extended to the end of the property right here. So if this is ever developed over here, something coming in off of Abbie Lane, the town will be able to loop the water line, which was one of the things they wanted. The Conservation Commission up here, between these two lots, which are, I think, lots 9 and 11, they have they've asked us, initially, when we put the open space on the plan, we didn't have any access, well, what I would call dry access, easy access, from the project street to the open space. Conservation, because sometimes the conservation wants that, sometimes they don't, because sometimes it becomes a bone of contention with people cutting through yards that maybe is an easement. So the commission asked us, said, look, we would just like a 10-foot wide strip that we own, that's part of the open space. So it's not a question of, on the neighbor's property or not. We want you to monument it, which we will, what we monument it with was, there's 6x6 posts. They're 4 feet high, and we put a tag on them that basically says, conservation land. So down at the end here, we've split these two lots, and so you'll be able to park your car or walk up the street and walk into the open space in the rear there.
When you, excuse me, Bob, just
Sure.
to say, so when you say park your car, you mean in the cul-de-sac?
Sure, you could park your car in the cul-de-sac, or, again, it's one of the issues, but I don't know. We'll see. But that's what they asked for, and we said yes.
Okay.
Let me just go down here. I want to zoom in a little bit on my, there you go. So down here, the DPW also asked us, before, what we did is we had the sidewalk, which is on the left side as you come into the street, it just ended on East Street. There's no sidewalk on the other side of East Street. Sidewalk ends up here on Brookside Drive, which is where I'm moving my little hand. So the DPW said, look, instead of ending it there, can you put a crosswalk in? And it's just a painted crosswalk right here. There's plenty of sight distance in both directions for the speed. And then we'll build this little section of sidewalk on the west side of East Street, and we'll connect with another crosswalk to the existing sidewalk, which comes down East Street and also goes down Brookside Drive. And we'll have handicap ramps there as well, and this point, the 4 different points that are required. So we added that as well. And then one of the other things they asked us, that the consultant made a comment of, was just let me zoom out here for a sec. So we added 2 more sets of catch basins on the site in the middle here, and we added a flared end, which is an open pipe with kind of like the, it's open on the end down here. And this was a comment from the town's peer reviewer, and the town regulations require us to design the storm drain system, the pipes, the catch basins, not the basins, but the piping and the catch basins to handle the 25-year event, the famous 25-year storm. So but the basins are designed to handle the 100-year. So there's always going to be some flooding in the street while the catch basins catch up to shove the water into it when anything bigger than that 25-year storm. So the consultant said, it would be a good engineering reason to design those catch basins and the pipe system, the closed drain system, to handle the bigger storm, to get it all in there. And I said, okay, says it's not required, but we said fine, because it made sense. So we've upsized that, and the way we did that is we turned all of our catch basins into double catch basins to catch more water, and we've added 4 more catch basins, 2 more sets to the site. So those are the big changes. If you were looking at a plan, you'd look at it and go, oh, those are the big changes. Most of the other stuff was answering questions of, why we did this and prove that and things like that. I don't think I missed anything. I don't think so. So that concludes our presentation, and I'm open for any questions.
Curiosity, what's the speed limit on East Street in that area?
Oh, good question. I think it's, I don't know.
It's not thickly settled, is it?
It's what?
Wouldn't be considered thickly settled.
I don't know. I ran the,
My guess would be 35.
I have it, just if you give me 1 sec.
My guess would be 35.
Because the police department asked us to measure the site distance, and we did. Oh, shoot. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think it's 35. But I know that we met the site distance. Went out and measured it and based it on the AASHTO standards.
Bill, just to refresh my memory, the original catch basins are right down near East Street, correct?
There is still, so let me just zoom in on this for you. So as everybody knows, you've been there, I'm sure, you come in off the site and it goes up. So it's a 6% grade coming in off the street. So, but up here is the lowest point we could put our basin. So it's kind of the basin, as you look in, that ridge there, it's on top of the ridge. So
The first ones.
the stormwater basin, which we're going to capture the water. So that's at the very top, it's at the top of the ridge right here. So if you look at the grades, the elevation up there is like 183, and the elevation down at the road is like 175. So we can't get water from down here up into the basement. So there's always been a double set of catch basins down there
Yep.
that will go into the culvert and then drain
Yep.
into the wetlands down there. So those remain. What we've done is added more from the top of the ridge up to the top of the road.
Okay. And we're still, the applicant's still seeking 3 waivers, is that correct?
Yes, they are, so the 3 waivers are to waive the requirement that the sidewalk be 5 feet back of edge of curb for a portion of the roadway, and that's to minimize the amount of filling in that riverfront area. The second waiver is to waive the requirement for dead-end street not to exceed 800 feet. I didn't know if we needed that because we're applying for a special permit, but I put it in there anyways. And then to waive the requirement that the drainage basin, which is the one I was just talking about, be located 50 feet from all proposed structures. So that basin, now these lots are small because it's a cluster, so it's difficult to meet that standard. So that house will have a basin on the lot, and it will, in all likelihood, be within 50 feet. And then the final waiver, which I didn't agree with the consultant, but I added it anyways, just to move things along. He would, to waive the requirement that the exterior stormwater basin slope to be less than 3 to 1. And the reason what that is, so it's, the way I read our bylaw, and it has always been interpreted this way, is stormwater basins can be no steeper than 3 to 1 in the inside. Excuse me. And that's what the DEP stormwater standard is as well. On the outside of the basin, because if you were standing on the road looking at the basin, it's right on the edge of that slope, and that slope drops off pretty substantially. So his interpretation was the outside has to be 3 to 1 too. I don't agree. So I put in our memo that I don't agree, and that the reason for it is, and that it's my opinion, my professional opinion, that it doesn't impact the design of the basin, nor does it impact the wetlands there as well. So one of the reasons you would want to have perhaps a basin far enough away from a slope like that is because you can have what's called breakout. So sometimes water, or more likely it's effluent, moves laterally and it can break out of that slope. So you want to try and get it far enough away. To give you some idea, under the state sanitary code, Title V, septic, you only have to be 15 feet away. So you got to be 15 feet away from the slope. In this particular case, we're almost 50. And the other thing about it, the reason I'm not worried about it is because the soils up here, it's pure sand. It's like beach sand in that area. So you're not going to get lateral movement of water. That water's going to go down. It's not going to move laterally across. So that was my take on it, and I think that the town engineer, if I'm not correct, agreed with me on that, because
Lance, he did.
the consultant and I didn't agree, so we usually let Lance referee.
You're doing it anyway.
I'm sorry,
You're doing it anyway.
I won.
So if we were to entertain those, would we be entertaining that fourth?
Yeah, we need to add to the list there, yeah.
Okay.
It is in the revised plans,
Right,
I know.
in the list, so yes.
okay.
Anything else from the board?
Do you have any comments there, Kevin?
Lance Del Priori, the town engineer, said, "Well, I do think it's a responsibility of the peer reviewer to highlight these types of discrepancies for the board. I can also agree that it may not constitute a waiver request, as there is no local bylaw or regulation to waive." The infrastructure should comply to the maximum extent feasible, but practical impacts must be design considerations as well. It's up to the board or their agents to determine the severity of these types of issues. In my opinion, I don't have any major concerns regarding the location of the basin as designed.
Mr. Chairman, I just found the answer to Mr. Whitehouse's question. The posted speed limit is 35 miles an hour. And it's, the recommended intersection sight distance with stop control, which is what we have there, is 390 feet. And we have 472 feet looking to the south, and looking to the north, it's about 700 feet looking to the north. So it's well above that posted limit, and the actual limit, I'm sure, is faster. So, but we're well above it. It's not like it's close.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think there were any other board or safety comments that I can find here. Hold on a second.
Gabby, while Kevin's perusing the comments, I just want to make sure we're on the same page now, because we just heard a recommendation from the professional staff, from the engineer, that, you know, you heard it.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure we're, you know, where we are where we want to be.
Yeah. Are you saying about the need for the fourth?
The fourth, yes.
From what what I read from Lance's comments and speaking with him, you know, he said that, you know, it's not necessary
Right.
for us to waive. It's not a town requirement, so we don't need to.
Right. So we have 3 on the table then?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
Any comments, you know, that are here or older? I don't know that we need to get into. Chris Gallagher had a comment back to Mr. Hunt. He wanted to follow up on a letter to the planning board. The plan has changed significantly for 2014, therefore a lot of concerns and comments from my original letter are no longer valid. Long-term pollution prevention plan was missing from the current stormwater submittal, so that's been requested for review. There was language for O&M, and both during construction and long-term. That follows our standard procedures throughout the rest of Foxborough. Weston and Sampson is completing the peer review for stormwater management, but we have not seen those comments, and now we have seen them. So, I don't think there's any others that are in here.
Any comments from the audience?
There's just one letter submittal here from Mr. Hunt. June 13th, dear fellow Foxborough Planning Board, please take the below comments from a previous application at 204 East Street into account while considering the Pioneer proposal. Foxborough zoning bylaws revised November 4th, 2013, section 8.3.9, which outlines the application process for an open space residential development. Number 8 states if the preliminary, conventional, and conceptual OSRD plans are approved, the planning board shall, insofar as practical under the law, emphasis added, allow the submittal of a combined special permit and definitive subdivision plan. According to members of the Concom present and most meeting attendees, the preliminary conventional plan did not have enough information to demonstrate the plan was practical under the law. The Foxborough Conservation Commission repeatedly commented this project exceeded the threshold for an allowable amount of disturbance within the riverfront area under the Massachusetts Riverfront Protection Act by over 2 times, and therefore the preliminary convention plan was not possible as proposed. Therefore, while theoretically large bridges could span project wetlands, although this remains not to be seen, no amount of money would be able to avoid impacts to the riverfront area with 2 large bridge crossings as proposed. How can the planning board approve a plan that is not practicable under law? In addition to the July 24th meeting, a Conservation Commission member commented that the preliminary convention plan, some of the homes will be located on lots 10 to 15 foot embankments due to road grading, and in some cases, the houses were located within the embankment. It appeared the grading was not considered by the planning board in determining the reasonable configuration for acceptable building lots. Another point of confusion is the status of the conceptual plan that was submitted as part of the application process. There was very little discussion about the conceptual OSRD. Was this plan approved as well, and the required special permit issued? So, The only thing I could say to Mr., in response to Mr. Hunt is he's referring back to things that happened in 2013, and a lot of water has gone over the dam since then, and the Conservation Commission, in their most recent meeting, has made a determination that they're going to be taking a vote on approving past conditions and current conditions that will allow this to go forward. So unless anybody else has an issue that they want to address with that, I don't think that that's necessarily relevant to what we're discussing tonight. Right. There are two people in the audience, and if you would like to comment, I'm going to ask you, either or both of you, that you keep your comments restricted to what we're reviewing tonight. We're not going to be discussing issues that have already come before the Conservation Commission or the Rivers Act or things like that. That's their purview, it's not our purview. But if you have items that you want to discuss relative to what we're talking about this evening, specifically to what's on this plan and what Mr. Buckley has just presented to us, you're welcome to get up and speak and just come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Can I present a picture, Kevin?
Sure, of course.
I know some of you have seen these pictures before, but this is where the proposed road is going to be
Yes.
located.
Yep.
You just pass that around. It's been discussed.
Excuse me. You need to go to the podium and speak in the microphone,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, please, Tom.
Tom Hunt, 206 East Street. So it's been discussed before with Conservation about a concern for flood storage capacity. It seems pretty obvious that a new road in that area is going to complicate the historic flooding issue that we've had there. And I know this is probably conservation, but I'm going to say it anyways. The whole property is in an area of critical environmental concern. So putting 12 houses on sloping land that all slopes down into a public water supply for 70,000 people, to me, 12 houses is a ridiculous number. The last time they, back in 13 or 15, Kevin, when they came in, you required them to do a conceptual plan. Is that not going to be required this time?
To be honest with you, not to disagree with you, but frankly, my memory isn't good enough to remember whether we had a conceptual plan submitted at that time.
You did.
And I'm not saying we didn't, I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's not, my memory isn't that strong that I would know that for sure.
I have the plan at home, I can
You know.
email it over to you.
But I think that this thing's been under review for years already. And I think that, at this point, especially pending the results of the most recent Conservation Commission hearings, I think that, it's just my opinion, that we're pretty much ready to go if indeed the Concom votes in favor of, dealing with the issues that they had there.
So.
And they're the ones who would
if
address
it's
that.
If it's predetermined, then there's no sense in me in speaking anymore then, obviously. You're just telling me that it's predetermined.
I didn't say that.
You just told me that it was predetermined.
You can argue with me all you like, Mr. Hunt.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Tromara. I presently live at 40 Prospect Street, but in late '69, my family moved to Foxborough, and over the next year, my father developed initially the property at 186 East Street, which is in the immediate vicinity, of course. So I'm generally familiar with the area and the concerns of residents, including the current gent who resides at 186, as well as Mr. Hunt. My comments will be general and yet also specific at the same time. We installed initially what's called a crushed oval culvert pipe on the Canoe River for the driveway to pass over. It's a 4.5-foot pipe, but being squashed in form, in profile, it had somewhat more capacity than a straight 4.5-foot diameter tube. On one or two occasions, I remember very well, instead of a few inches or 8 or 10 inches, the water got up under heavy rains to close to the top of the pipe. And yet on one occasion, it went considerably above the pipe and overflooded the immediate area to either side of the river and out into the garden field and so forth. So, you know, that was sometime prior to 2002 when we sold the family property, in the previous 2 decades or so. So certainly anomalous things happen. If you ask the folks in South Florida right now, they'll tell you just that. They're looking at a total of about 30 inches of rain, not from a hurricane, but from what they call once-in-a-millennium flooding. So by way of saying, no matter what the planning, best laid plans of mice, man, and I'll add planners/developers, you know, extenuating things can happen, especially under the current weather variables we're facing moving forward. I also want to mention that having lived in town, except for 8 years in Florida and a year in North Attleboro in the interim, 46 of the last 55 years, beginning in 1969. So I've seen the changes come with what was originally Schaefer Stadium or Sullivan Stadium and everything that's proceeded since. And by the way, I appreciate the developer's side of the equation. A close family member has a good friend who is a very experienced developer up in Maine, and in a particular growing area, I've followed the drama where they've both been involved in an effort to build a considerable affordable housing, moderately affordable housing area. And I followed the drama, meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars of concessions, never mind the legal expenses in the process, as they got partial board and then full board agreements on all the variable issues and approvals and so forth, only to come right down to the final end, where one would assume very reasonably that it was going to be a final yes approval by the board, but it was no, it was a denial. So I appreciate from the other side of the equation that when one owns property, one expects to have a reasonable right to sell it, develop it, profit from it. But it's with some dismay that I watched what I call a bit of a beast. It's not 20 stories, but for Foxborough it might as well be, over on Wall Street, go in, which is, it's a large building and it's in the center, and to me it's the beginning, hopefully the end, but it's the beginning of what could grow to become the appearance of downtown Attleboro or Brockton or what have you. The thing going in down on Walnut Street, okay, senior housing, that's good. Low-income housing, I suppose that's good, although we have quite enough, perhaps. And I'll also add an aside that low-income probably to me means also putting some more criminal illegal aliens in there.
This is low, it is not typical low-income property development there. It is
I'm not really familiar with it, so.
No, it's an affordable housing for
Okay,
seniors
and
only.
if that's what it is, great.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, that's an issue in town, and I don't know how much it's been discussed, but it's an issue of great concern to a lot of people I talk to. Anyway, I'll leave that back as an aside. So, you know, my concern is, what should the town look like? How much development should there be? Where is the line drawn between ever greater impact? I know my water bill has increased 100% over the last several years. I don't know if the trend will continue. I know there have been expense issues. Water, fire, ambulance, traffic, et cetera, school busing, impact on schools. When is it a net negative for the community as far as general livability and standard of living to just keep having more and more and more development and population density? You know, I haven't been here before the board before. As I said, I understand both sides of the equation. I'm a person, I've lived in houses here and in Florida and so forth. I'm somewhat familiar with, you know, the efforts to develop and all that entails on that side of the equation. I have to say, I hesitate, but I feel I have to say it. I also have concerns about process. All of us here know that there are still some murmurings around town about under what conditions and circumstance did the previous town manager up and leave quickly, abruptly, after short term, and the process of appointing and voting for the new town manager, not impugning her capability or qualification at all, but I'm just saying. That said, in this current environment, when you have a developer who 5 years ago said, and I quote, based on what I consider to be a good direct source, "Let me come in and buy your property. I can develop it. I have the money and the connections to get it done." Well, if there's supposed to be due, clear, and open process, rules, regulations, best interests of the town in every sense, what kind of connections might that involve that could make said developer so certain that we can do it, I can do it? It may not be a popular thing to say, but, you know, this is perhaps good because it's a voice of many, many in the town that aren't here and will remain silent, saying what I think needs to be said. Again, I'm not here to, I don't have full direct firsthand knowledge of anything. I've done a little bit of research on the history of this project, but I don't know everything about it. I know the area well enough, but I don't know everything about this project, the technicals, you know, drainage and impacts and all that stuff. But I think that my general concerns I'm expressing about the welfare and livability of our town moving forward have both general and yet very specific direct impact to this as another development, you know, environmental concerns and so forth aside. I think, you know, if I go on, it would just be redundant, and my comments are made with all due respect and without suggesting full and complete knowledge of any of the proceedings or the intent behind those who are involved in the proceeding. I feel I have to qualify that, but I also want to express to you what I'm feeling as just a local resident who's got some history in town and in that area. And again, I know it's important because other than Mr. Hunt, there's no one else here. But I know that I talk to a lot of people in town regularly of some wealth and prominence, not that that matters. And they have similar concerns about a lot of issues. So the fact that I'm perhaps stating them on behalf of many residents is in and of itself a good thing. And I'll say respectfully submitted, and I'm still trying to remember what type of car Mr. Bresci had in high school.
69 Firebird.
There you go. I thought it was a Cougar, but that was Young, Bruce Young. Anyway, on that note, thank you.
You're welcome. Any further questions, comments from the board?
I would like to address the ethics side of it.
Please do. Thank you. Because I'm going to too.
Right.
That's going ahead.
Steve, I would just like to make it very clear that every one of us on this board serve voluntarily. We are elected by the community to represent the community. We have no interests in taking care of one person over another. We have ethics standards that we have to uphold, and we never, ever cross the line, because if we do, we are asked to leave the board. I joined this board almost 20 years ago for that very reason, because there was a certain person on the board that I really didn't like how things were being done.
Thank you, and I'll take that at face value.
You know, and the only other thing I could say to you, Steve, is that if you were to look at the history of this property, it has been denied, pushed back for, I don't know when it started, decade ago at least, longer than that probably.
Maybe 35 years, yeah.
So the fact that some current purchaser or developer who likes to move his mouth and say things like that, I can assure you, because you know me and, you know our family, that there's absolutely no way that anyone who's on this board, regardless of how long they've been on it or not, has ever compromised the town's best interest in order to let a development happen, ever. We've said no to dozens and dozens of things, and, the biggest weight here has been for that whole period of time, has almost always been related to the wetland conservation issues and things like that. We held off even having this hearing tonight until Concom finally, had hearings about old past issues that were at the state and now current issues, in order to take a vote and say whether they felt that this was a viable, fair, and process, and that it met the criteria of them. So we're, I don't know who the person was that told you that, but I think in as polite a way as I can, we would pretty much all strongly disagree that there's any power that person thinks they might have that would influence this board.
Yeah, you're good.
And I have to say, same with staff.
And the same as staff, correct.
All set, thank you.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, if it's, if it's in the chairman's frame of reference at the time, I'd be prepared to make a motion for approval.
The only question I have for Gabby and Diana is, do you think we still need to just wait until they take their vote on the?
I would make it conditional
Yeah,
upon
I think we have to
approval.
make it.
I think
Yeah,
that would
John.
be wise.
The interim agent has drafted an order of conditions, and they'll be discussing and voting on it on the meeting on June 17th, which is Monday.
So why don't, I'm open to accepting a motion and taking a vote conditioned on the fact that they make that approval.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Yes, okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
So I took the liberty of drafting findings and the waiver requests and conditions to discuss. And the board has copies of them. I would request that because of the open space residential development is a special permit, we need to do separate votes. Mr. Murphy should be activated to participate in the vote on the special permit. Additionally, I'd like to request that the board read the findings to make sure that you agree, that you all agree with the findings.
Okay.
Clarification? Separate votes on permit and
And the
conditions.
definitive subdivision.
Right.
So we have a special permit for the innovative design, right, for the length of road and for the OSRD.
So you want us to read both the findings and the requested waivers?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You want to do that?
She's asking us to, so yeah. You want
Okay.
me to do it, or you want to do it?
I can do it.
Fine,
yeah.
please.
So, findings under the special permit application would be a general statement first, and I'll just read this as prepared. Prior to granting the special permits, the board made the required findings and determinations that the proposed 12-lot subdivision achieves greater flexibility and creativity in the design of residential development, promotes the preservation of community character and natural resources, is compatible with the existing neighborhood, reduces impacts on natural resources and roadways, will not have a detrimental impact on the neighborhood or abutting properties, facilitates the efficient delivery of services and complies with the requirements of Section 8.5 of the zoning bylaws. The plans also comply with the applicable requirements of the subdivision regulations unless otherwise waived, and we will refer to 3 proposed requested waivers in a bit. The extended dead-end road provides the following. 1, vehicle and pedestrian safety with the elimination of a second curb cut on East Street. 2, preservation of land features such as existing trees and the protection of natural resources with the elimination of a second curb cut and a second roadway crossing, which minimizes the amount of wetland filling, and the gifting of parcel B to the town of Foxborough. 3, abutting lots and land use patterns are compatible and similar to the dead-end subdivision as compared to the existing lot and the other land uses which are allowed on that lot. 4, homeowners, the public, and public safety providers will not be inconvenienced with the proposed dead-end subdivision. Additionally, the board made the required findings that the proposed 12-lot subdivision is in harmony with the intent and the requirements of Section 8.3 Open Space Residential Development of the zoning bylaws in Chapter 275 zoning. The open space as required by Section 8.3 has been provided and generally conforms to the dedicated open space section of Section 8.3. The proposed uses of the open space comply with Section 8.3. The proposed open space will be dedicated in compliance with Massachusetts general laws and Section 8.3 and is suitably protected. Approximate building sites have been identified and are not located closer than 100 feet to wetlands and water bodies. Proposed streets have been aligned to provide vehicular access to each house in a reasonable and economical manner. Lots and streets have been located to avoid or minimize adverse impacts on open space areas and to provide views of and access to the open space for the lots. All lots meet the applicable dimensional requirements of Section 8.3 and zoning bylaws. The development will not have a detrimental impact on the neighborhood or abutting properties, and the proposed subdivision and open space complies with the requirements and approval criteria of Section 8.3 of the zoning bylaws. And that is the applicable findings.
Would you like the waivers read in as well? Jeff's on a roll here, so.
Well, the 3, as discussed previously this evening, the 3 requested waivers, and I would preface this just by saying Section 4.00A of the subdivision regulations allows the board to waive specific provisions of the subdivision regulations, provided such waiver is in the public interest and not inconsistent with the intent of the subdivision control law. And the 3 waivers currently requested. 1, Section 5.03D, to waive the requirement for dead-end streets not exceeding 800 feet in length. 2, Section 5.04B, to waive the requirement that the sidewalk be 5 feet back of edge of curb for a portion of the roadway. And 3, Section 5.06B.8, to waive the requirement for drainage basin to be located 50 feet from all the proposed structures. And all these waivers shall run with the land and bind any successors or assigns, and the board reserves the right to modify waivers without a public hearing, but during a regularly scheduled meeting. In addition to that, there are 29 conditions of approval that would be attached to any decision from the board, certainly any favorable decision. And those would be, I'm sure, available for review, public review, either at the town clerk's office or at the planning office.
And all subject to Concom approval.
Right.
So would you like me to add a condition that this is subject to Conservation Commission approval of the project?
Yes.
Please.
So, having done that, is there a motion?
Yeah, I guess. And I would make that in the form of a motion for approval. There are the findings, here are the waivers, and again, there are, so everyone understands, 29 conditions of approval.
30.
Oh, with that one, sorry, my bad.
And you did make a motion?
I did.
I will second that.
Any further conversation or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Could I have a vote for special permit separate, please? We need 2 votes. We need a special permit, and then we need for the definitive subdivision. Sorry.
Well, I would make that first motion that the board approve the special permit application for Pine Air Estates at 204 East Street, subject to the prior findings and conditions that we reviewed.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I would make a motion that the board approve the subdivision plan, open space, for Pine Air Estates at 204 East Street, again, subject to the findings and condition as outlined.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.